Chapter 11. The Victory. It was not long after the incident that Marie was awakened one moonlit night by a strange rumbling that seemed to come from the corner of the room. It was as if small stones were being thrown about with squeaks and squeals mixed in. "The mice! The mice have come back!" Marie cried in surprise. She wanted to wake her mother, but found herself unable to make a sound or move a muscle. She could only watch as the Mouse King squeezed himself out through a hole in the wall. His 14 eyes and 7 crowns glistened as he bounded through the room and made a huge leap at the top of Marie's nightstand. "I must have you sugar balls and marzipan, or I will bite your Nutcracker through," he squeaked and gnashed his teeth hideously. Then he jumped off the table and disappeared through the hole in the wall. Marie was so frightened by the horrific appearance that the next morning she was very pale and could barely say a word. 100 times she wanted to tell her mother Louise, or at least Fritz, what happened, but she thought, "Will they believe me, or will they laugh at me?" But one thing was certain, and that was that she would have to give up her sugar balls and marzipan. She put each and every piece in front of the toy cabinet that night. The next morning her mother said, "I don't know how all these mice got into our living room. Look, Marie! They've eaten all your candy!" Indeed they had. The marzipan was not to the Mouse King's taste, but he nibbled it with his sharp teeth, so it had to be thrown out. Marie was not concerned with the candy, however. She was quite happy inside, for she believed the Nutcracker was safe. But that night she heard a dreadful squeaking and squealing right by her ear. The Mouse King was there again, and looked even more horrible than before. His eyes gleamed, and he hissed more threateningly from his gnashing teeth. "I must have more. Give me your sugar dolls. I'll bite your Nutcracker through." And he jumped away again. Marie was very sad. The next morning she went to the cabinet and looked mournfully at her sugar dolls. Her pain was not unreasonable. Her sugar dolls were beautifully shaped and molded into figures even you might find difficult to believe. A shepherd and a shepherdess looked after grazing flocks of milky white lambs with their merry little dogs scampered about. 2 mailmen walked with letters in their hand, and 4 handsome couples, men in dapper suits and women in beautiful dresses, rocked in a Russian swing. Behind that there were dancers, Dan Patcher, Philip Comel, and Joan of Arc, whom Marie did not particularly care about. But in the corner stood a red-cheeked child, Marie's favorite. Tears welled from her eyes. "Oh," she exclaimed, turning to the Nutcracker, "Dear Mr. Drosselmeyer, I'll do everything I can to save you, but it's very hard." She looked at the Nutcracker, who looked so helpless that she could not help but imagine the Mouse King with all 7 mouths open to devour the unfortunate young man. At that she was ready to sacrifice everything. She took all of her sugar dolls and set them by the base of the cabinet, so she had with the sugar balls and marzipan the night before. She kissed the shepherd and the shepherdess, the lambs, and her favorite, the red-cheeked child, which she put in the very back. Hatcher, Philip Nicole, and Joan of Arc were put up in front. "Now that's too bad," Marie's mother said the next morning. "Very big and nasty mouse must live in the toy cabinet because poor Marie's sugar dolls are all gnawed up and chewed up." Marie could not keep herself from crying, but she soon smiled again when she thought to herself, "What does it matter? Nutcracker is safe." That evening, after Marie's mother told the judge about the damage caused by the mouse in the cabinet, Dr. Stahlbaum said, "It's a shame we cannot exterminate that infernal mouse that's destroying Marie's candy." "Hey!" Fritz interrupted enthusiastically. "The baker downstairs has a big gray cat I'd like to bring up. He'll take care of things and bite off that mouse's head, even if it is Lady Mouse Rings or that Mouse King himself." Their mother laughed. and jump around on tables and couches, knock down the glasses and cups, and cause 1,000 other damages? Oh, no, he wouldn't, Fritz protested. He's a clever cat. I wish I could walk as gracefully on the roof as he does. Please, no tomcats tonight, said Louise, who could not tolerate cats. Actually, Fritz has a point, Dr. Stolbum said. But could we set up a trap, or do we have none? Godfather Drosselmeyer can make one. He invented them, Fritz said. Everyone laughed, and after Mrs. Stolbum informed everyone that there were no mouse traps in the house, the judge announced that he had several, and within an hour he had gone to his home and brought back a splendid mouse trap. The tale of the hard nut was very much alive inside Fritz and Marie's heads. When Marie saw Dora the cook, whom she knew quite well, browning the fat, all the stories came rushing back to her head. She began to tremble, and she blurted, "Oh, my queen! Beware of mouse winks and her family!" At that, Fritz drew his sword and said, "If any of them showed up here, I'd take them out." Later, as Fritz watched Drosselmeyer build the mousetrap and set it into the cabinet, he said, "Careful, Godfather Drosselmeyer, that the Mouse King does not play some trick on you." That night, Marie felt something like ice-cold feet crawling up her arm. Something rough and disgusting brushed against her cheek. There was a horrible squealing in her ear. The Mouse King sat on her shoulder. He drooled, blood red, gnashed his teeth even more ferociously than before, and hissed into Marie's ear. "Don't go to the house, don't go to the feast. Can't let yourself get caught like a wretched little beast. Give me all your picture books, give me your Christmas dress, or I'll nibble Nutcracker all to bits, and you'll never have any peace." Squeak! Marie was miserable and visibly distressed. She was haggard and pale, and when her mother, who, though Marie was still upset over her candy and terrified of the mouse, noticed this, she said, "I'm afraid that nasty mouse has not been caught yet." Then she added, "But we'll get it, don't worry. If the trap doesn't work, we'll have Fritz bring up the baker's cat." As soon as Marie was left alone in the living room, she stood in front of the glass cabinet, sobbing, said, "Oh, Mr. Drosselmeyer, where can an unfortunate girl like me do for you? The Mouse King wants my picture books and the dress the Christ child gave me. And when he's been through those, he'll just demand more. I'm afraid when I run out of things to give him, he'll want to bite me up instead. What am I supposed to do now?" As Marie complained to the Nutcracker, she noticed a large dark spot of blood on his neck. Since learning that the Nutcracker was really Drosselmeyer's nephew, she no longer carried him about in her arms, nor kissed him as she had before, and in fact, she found herself becoming quite shy in front of him. However, she removed him from the toy cabinet and wiped away the blood with her handkerchief. Suddenly, she felt him growing warm in her hand, and even moving. She quickly sent him back down, and he spoke with apparent difficulty. "My dear Miss Stolbum, to whom I owe everything, do not sacrifice your picture books or your Christmas dress for me. I just need a sword. If I had a sword, I could—" And suddenly he stopped, and his melancholic eyes became still and lifeless once more. Marie was no longer frightened or worried. In fact, she jumped with joy because she now knew how to save the Nutcracker without sacrificing any more of her treasured possessions. But where to find a sword? She decided to ask Fritz, and that evening after their parents had departed from the living room, and told him the complete story of what had happened in front of the toy cabinet that fateful night, and what she had to do to save the Nutcracker now. Fritz had never thought over anything as hard than what he should do with the hussars after he heard from Marie how badly they performed in battle. He asked her very seriously whether it was really true, and after Marie assured him that it was, he hurried to the glass-fronted cabinet and gave them a stern speech. Then he cut the insignias off their caps and forbade them from playing the Hussars' March for a year. Then he turned to Marie and said, "I can help Nutcracker with the sword. I just retired an old colonel of the Crossers with a pension yesterday, and he's got a bright and shiny sword he will not be needing any more." The aforementioned colonel was making use of his pension in the back corner of the third shelf. Fritz brought him out, removed his silver sword, and hung it from the Nutcracker's belt. That night Marie was so anxious she was unable to sleep. She could hear clattering and banging coming from the living room, and suddenly, squeak! "The Mouse King! The Mouse King!" Marie cried, and jumped out of her bed in fright. For a while it was completely quiet. Then there was a knock at the door, and a small voice said, "Excellent Mistress Talbot, be glad of heart, for I have good news." Marie recognized the voice of Mr. Drosselmeyer. She threw on her dressing gown and opened quickly the door. Nutcracker stood outside the door with a bloody sword in one hand and a candle in the other. He knelt down on one knee and said, "You, and you alone, my lady, have given me the courage of a knight to fight the insolent scoundrel who dared treat you so disrespectfully. The treacherous Mouse King now lies mortally wounded and wallowing in his own blood. Please accept, my lady, these tokens of my victory from your devoted knight." Nutcracker removed the 7 crowns he had hung over his left arm and presented them to Marie, who accepted them gladly. Nutcracker rose to his feet and said, "My excellent lady, with my enemy defeated, I can now show you the most wonderful things. If you will kindly follow me for a short while. Please come with me. Please come, excellent lady."